One of the most popular games to come out in the past few years has been Raid Shadow Legends. You've seen the adverts, be they Raid's well-produced commercials, or the copy-pasted ad reads from your favorite content creators. In spite of its incessant advertisement on YouTube, Twitch, and other platforms, Raid as a game is frankly unimpressive. The graphics are passable for a mobile title, the gameplay is a brainless slog, and the UI is unpolished at best. In spite of its general mediocrity, Raid Shadow Legends is one of the most successful and profitable mobile titles out there, generating hundreds of millions in revenue every year. While their seemingly bottomless advertising budget is a contributing factor in Raid's success, their meteoric rise in revenues are largely because it's a gacha game. Gacha games have become an increasingly popular and profitable game genre over the past decade or so. The term gacha game comes from the Japanese Gachapon, a type of capsule vending machine. Costing 100 to 500 yen a spin, Gachapon machines typically contain sets of collectibles, with the series being anything from popular anime to bowls of ramen. By the very nature of the machine, the outcome is random. You never know what figure you'll get when you turn the crank. This randomness adds an element of chance and excitement, but it also allows for Gachapon's more insidious aspects. If you want to actually complete a Gachapon set, it's much more complex than doing as many pulls as there are unique drops. The machines contain multiples of every figure in their set. That way, multiple people could play the same machine and have a chance at completing the set. The problem for a single user is that this leads to duplicates, and the number of plays needed to actually complete a set averages out to double or triple the number of unique figures. This also assumes you have the same odds for every figure, which isn't always the case. Gachapon series often have a number of common figures, with one or two rare figures you're much less likely to get. The odds of getting particular figures typically aren't disclosed either, so your likelihood of actually getting a desired drop or completing your sets might be worse than you think. Furthermore, there's often a psychological element to Gachapon. The various sets and machines are updated and rotated out as tastes change and new sets are released. The time-sensitive nature of Gachapon sets has led many to shell out now, rather than risk the removal of a series or machine. In addition, for people desperate to complete a set despite their mountain of duplicates, the sunk cost fallacy often kicks in, and they end up burning even more money. Now, for most people, this is neither an issue nor a concern. Completing sets isn't their primary goal, and Gachapon is just a fun activity to spend a few yen on. For the more die-hard Gachapon fans, however, the tricky statistics and psychological ploys are there to wring their wallets dry, and intentionally no less. It is no surprise then that Gachapon is a massive industry in Japan, bringing in billions of yen annually. The fundamental mechanics of Gachapon are highly profitable, and it was only a matter of time before they made the jump from analog to digital. Gacha as a system would first appear in games like Shenmue, with their Sega character Gachapon machines, and MapleStory, with their Gachapon tickets. In both cases, gacha mechanics were either a benign minigame, or just the aesthetic of a microtransaction system. You would see the first real implementation of gacha as a core mechanic with 2010's Dragon Collection. Dragon Collection revolved around collecting cards and building decks for progression, and to compete with friends. You'd receive cards through gameplay, but could improve your deck by purchasing additional, randomized card packs. The gacha elements at play here should be obvious. If you want meaningful progression, you not only have to pay up, but be at the whims of these random gacha packs. Due to this, Dragon Collection was a major success, and would be followed up with the similarly themed Puzzle & Dragons in 2012. A match 3 title with a twist, you build a team of monsters to explore various dungeons, and the attacks and abilities of your team are determined by the puzzle gameplay. Here, the monsters and characters you collect, the core mechanic of the game, are obtained through a gacha egg machine. The currency required for this can be either earned in-game or purchased with real-world currency. Given that the rarest, strongest characters require dozens, if not hundreds of pulls, you'll likely have to dip into your wallet for an advantage, if not simply progression. Puzzle & Dragons would quickly become a massive success. The game would see downloads in the tens of millions just in the first year, and this would translate to sales. Puzzle & Dragons would eclipse $1 billion in revenue in 2013, making it the first mobile title to ever reach this milestone, and thanks in large part to its gacha mechanics. The popularity and profitability of Puzzle & Dragons signaled to the mobile scene that gacha mechanics were the next big thing. In the coming years, you'd see a number of gacha-based titles crop up, either based on original series or as adaptations of existing ones. In addition, these gacha games would expand out of the Asian home market and into Europe and America. Many of these modern gacha titles have performed extremely well, seeing millions in downloads and billions in revenue. While gacha has been a boon for various game developers, the response from gamers has been a bit mixed. Before diving into the negatives and sneaky maneuvers associated with gacha titles, it's best to look at their purported positives. Firstly, gacha games are typically a live service, being consistently updated with new characters, features, and content. The massive revenues generated through their monetization systems leads to substantial reinvestment in the project itself, both to entertain players and keep the gravy train rolling. At the same time, one of the most touted aspects of gacha titles is their monetization model. Almost every gacha released is free-to-play in some fashion. Being free-to-play means anybody can try out your game, keep playing at no cost, and stop playing with no loss. This has allowed more people to enjoy these games, a positive in and of itself, but has also given way to the more sinister aspects of gacha design. These games ultimately need to make money, and going free-to-play is the easiest way to get people in the door and eventually hooked. To that end, gacha titles have been almost precision engineered to have you not only engage in the gacha system, but get you addicted to it. Firstly, you have the actual gacha process itself. Rolling for gacha often involves a ton of pomp and flashy lights, an intentional design choice meant to add a wow factor to the activity. It's a little different from a slot machine, meant to utilize the same ostentatious displays, tap into the same psychological triggers, and incur addictive behaviors where possible. Unlike a slot machine, however, a gacha pull is guaranteed to yield at least something, be it the character you want, or random garbage you have 100 copies of. While this sounds generous, or like an improvement of sorts, it may actually be more addictive than your typical slot machine. There's the belief that you can't technically lose with gacha, which softens the blow of an unimpressive string of rolls. This makes players more comfortable, and thus more likely to continue rolling. The ultimate goal is to have the player willingly and consistently engaging in the gacha system, to the point where they've burned through their in-game currency and start utilizing IRL currencies. With that being said, it's important to note that players only engage in gacha in the context of the game itself. While gameplay typically rewards you with characters, currency, and resources as you play, the design of gacha games often encourages you to engage in the gacha mechanics. The introduction to gacha games, while not a cakewalk, is meant to be approachable, to have the player come to enjoy the core gameplay loop and make some progress in the story. After a certain point, however, level difficulty outpaces player progression. You can either grind out your mid-tier starter characters to hopefully progress, or try and roll for a 5-star or SSR. This artificial difficulty encourages participation in the aforementioned addictive gacha system, and you need either sheer luck or brute force to get where you need. Another aspect of gacha games that funnels you towards gacha are banners. These are limited time events where rare characters have higher drop rates, or where banner exclusive characters are available at all. If a meta-dominating unit is up for grabs, or if you just think they're really cute, you'll want to roll until you get them. If in the limited time frame you don't accrue enough in-game currency for rolls, well, there's always your credit card as a backup. These banners aren't uncommon either. Be it for story events or seasonal celebrations, new units or alts are constantly being introduced, and only for a limited time. For anyone heavily invested in the game or trying to collect them all, the sense of FOMO is substantial, and it's basically impossible to not spend money. A similar mechanic meant to encourage repeat play is dailies, free rewards given for just logging in, or daily missions for easy progression in rolls. A common tactic is to have your free rewards only redeemable in the game's cash shop. This puts you literally in the door of their storefront, something many players wouldn't engage with in the first place, and increases your likelihood of actually making a purchase. In summary, the addictive, wallet-draining systems of Gachapon have been beautifully translated to gacha games, and they have experienced runaway success thanks to it. It's worth noting this broad focus on monetization systems has often been to the detriment of the games themselves. You have, of course, the aforementioned artificial difficulty and required participation in gacha, but gacha games are often unimpressive, repetitive, or poorly designed. With few exceptions, like Genshin Impact or Arknights, most gacha games fall into the same team RPG format. Here, success is seldom determined by actual skill and ability, but rather by the rarest, most broken characters on your team. In a similar vein, progression in the story or with characters is a glacial slog, and many of these games are tacitly aware of this. The frequent presence of auto-battle features, a way to progress without actually playing the game, is testament to the shallow depth of these games. Generally, the most gacha games have to offer is regarding their story and characters, and while there is value in this, it's bolted on to a half-baked system explicitly trying to bleed you dry. While you can play these games without spending a cent and still find value in them, the predatory underpinning of gacha games can't be ignored. It should be no surprise then that gacha games have often found themselves at the center of controversy and regulation. While gacha games technically aren't gambling, the similarities to the practice should be more than apparent. Given the fact gacha games usually appeal to minors and youths, concerns have often been raised surrounding underage gambling. Gacha games would receive their first major controversy in 2012 over a system known as Kompu Gacha. Kompu Gacha, also known as Complete Gacha, was a much more intensive version of gacha as it's known today. Essentially, if you wanted a rare and valuable unit, rather than just pulling for it once and getting it, you'd have to get 4 or 5 other rare units just to get this one super rare unit. People were burning through thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars through this system, minors included. When the news broke on these cases, Japanese parents and consumer groups were at arms. They viewed this as a form of gambling and called on this system to be removed. The Japanese Consumer Affairs Agency, Japan's Consumer Protection Bureau, would eventually step in and address the complete gacha issue. They would find complete gacha systems to be a form of gambling, and declare the system illegal under Japan's anti-gambling statutes. The Japanese gacha game industry saw a massive shock upon this development, and gacha games moving forward would utilize the now current style of gacha. In response, gacha titles and developers would do 2 things. Firstly, they would begin implementing and emphasizing banners in their games, a less profitable system compared to complete gacha, but a legal one. Second, the major Japanese gacha and mobile game developers would form the Japanese Social Gaming Association, or JASGA. JASGA was an industry association meant to self-regulate the broader gacha game industry in an effort to recover their tarnished image. In 2015, JASGA would merge with the more prestigious Consumer Entertainment Supplier Association, CISA, which continues operations today. It's worth noting JASGA and CISA weren't meant to protect consumers, but the industry itself. Think the tobacco or pharmaceutical lobby here in the US. The bare minimum level of self-regulation present in these associations would result in additional controversy in 2016. Granblue Fantasy was released in 2014 and quickly became one of the hottest gacha games in Japan. Around New Year's 2016, a banner was held for a rare and highly sought-after character, Anchira. Despite the advertised increased drop rates, people ended up spending in the thousands for this one character, if they even got her. Granblue's developer Cygames would end up in hot water for this misleading write-up, and gacha games writ large would see another wave of media furor. The result was another crash in the mobile market, which would lead to more substantive changes in the industry. Granblue and other gachas would start showing the actual odds of getting certain drops, and you begin to see pity systems implemented in various gacha games. Pity systems are where you're guaranteed a particular drop after a certain number of rolls, basically putting a cap on how much you can spend on a banner. At this point, pity systems and clearly disclosed odds are the standard for gacha games, an effort to distance themselves from their sordid past, and also a requirement for certain app stores. In spite of this, you still hear tales of people hopelessly addicted to gacha titles and experiencing financial ruin thanks to it. The gambling aspects of gacha games are an inextricable component of the genre, and the consequences thereof shouldn't come as a surprise. It is these addictive aspects, be they subtle or overt in how they manifest, that has led to the massive growth of gacha games. To close this off, I don't want to totally decry gacha games as a whole. If you approach them cautiously, as just another free game, much fun can be had with them. The graphics, storytelling, and systems present in gacha titles are constantly improving, and some are even valid competitors with modern big-ticket titles. Furthermore, there are a number of games with approachable, generous systems even if you don't spend a cent, making true free-to-play totally viable. With that being said, these generous and impressive features are built off of a few whales and gambling addicts, all hooked to an intrinsically predatory system. The psychological triggers present in these poor folk are found in us all, and we should thus be wary towards the genre as a whole. We should also work towards more robust regulation on the gacha industry, as they are clearly unwilling to properly police themselves. Refund systems and cooling off periods for purchases, or just treating gacha games as a form of gambling, would help curtail some of the predatory excesses of the industry. In any event, I don't exactly see the fundamental component of gacha games, gacha, going away anytime soon, but hopefully further regulations can be put on the industry, and we can all be smarter with our wallets going forward. Thanks for reaching the end, and I hope you enjoyed this vid. Gachas are an imperfect, controversial genre, one that basically preys on the most lizard-brained aspect of our psychology. Addiction and addictive systems are a topic I really care about, and one I've covered on this channel in the past. I hope this vid has put into perspective some of the more concerning and insidious aspects of gacha games, and given some possible solutions to them. Maybe leave me a comment with your thoughts on this. With that out of the way, shake hands with a like, hug the subscribe button, and that bell. Until next time, take care.